This is the most explosive news. This news needs to be spread everywhere. Make sure you tell everyone you know. Share this video. Share this post. Joe Biden has been busted, and we just got the goods. We have the receipts, and we have an actual check that Joe Biden received directly made out to him from his brother, Jim Biden, for $200,000. Again, this check was written to him directly out of a company where money had been brought in the very same day. $200,000 was paid in from a foreign country, and $200,000 was written on a check to Joe Biden.
The chief conspiracy theorist in Congress has truly outdone herself this time. That's right, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene believes she found a smoking gun linking Joe Biden to the Chinese government. Let's take a look at what she's basing this claim off of.
We now have direct evidence that Joe Biden took payments, direct payments from his brother Jim Biden in a complete money laundering scheme, and this links him to foreign investments. Democrats have been giving us hell. The media has not believed our stories. On Oversight, we have been investigating Joe Biden directly and his corruption through his family businesses because Joe Biden is the brand. Well, now we have a check for $200,000 that came through a company that his brother had invested in, and they were cycling money through from foreign investments.
I'm Rayy Vana, and welcome back to Rebel HQ. Now, like all of us, Marjorie Taylor Greene films all her most important announcements in a moving vehicle. But she also posted several tweets to supplement her car video. Let's take a look at them. The first tweet shows a picture of a check to Joe Biden for $200,000 dated March 1st, 2018. And the caption says, Biden bribery money trail. On March 1st, 2018, distressed company AmeriCorps wires $200,000 to James Biden because his last name Biden could, quote, open doors to Middle East investment. The same day, Joe Biden received a $200,000 check from James Biden. However, what Marjorie Taylor Greene fails to point out in that post is that on the for line on the check, it says loan repayment. And it just so happens that the House Oversight Committee has documentation showing that just 2 months earlier, Joe Biden wire transferred $200,000 as a loan to his brother. So it completely matches up that this would simply be his brother paying back a loan. But if you've been paying attention to Republicans in the House of Representatives and the Republican Party more broadly, you know that they've been trying to pin corruption on Joe Biden for a long time. In fact, they opened an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden, specifically alleging some type of financial corruption. And that they've had multiple smoking gun pieces of testimony or evidence that they claimed that amounted to absolutely nothing. Remember the Devin Archer testimony that was supposed to put Joe Biden behind bars, but in fact, he ended up testifying that he never saw Joe Biden do anything corrupt in his time working with Hunter Biden. And Republicans are having a hard time continuing the narrative that Joe Biden is the most corrupt president, particularly when their candidate for president and their former president is Donald Trump, but they're starting to flail. So they've latched on to this check and Marjorie Taylor Greene's Pepe Sylvia-esque conspiracy theory as the real smoking gun. But don't take my word for it. Here's Jesse Waters having an absolute meltdown on the 5, arguing with Jessica Tarlov, the resident liberal on the show, that she's a liar and that Joe Biden is severely corrupt.
Jessica and her ilk for years have said, well, you don't have money going directly into Joe Biden's bank account. All right, so now we have a check for $200,000 from one company through the brother to Joe's bank account. Okay. You still say, okay, well, that's not from overseas. That was a loan. Okay. What happens if the next check originates somewhere really bad, Jessica, and I mean really bad, and it goes through Hunter or it goes through James and it goes directly into Joe Biden's checking account? Is that your smoking gun? Is that your smoking gun, Jessica? Because you said that was a smoking gun. If money went from overseas directly into Joe Biden's bank account. If a check comes out at some point from that avenue, is that a smoking gun?
Okay. So two things.
Yes or no?
No.
Yes or no?
And she's right. And though Jesse Waters doesn't give her the time to explain why she's right, I will do that for all of you now. Because Jesse Waters knows that this repayment of a loan from his brother is so not the smoking gun that he has to create a different hypothetical where Joe Biden is getting a direct payment from a company overseas. But she says that even in the hypothetical he's created, that isn't the smoking gun on Joe Biden's corruption. And she's right, because then you have to tie that to some action Joe Biden took while in political office. And at the time that this money was being transferred, Joe Biden was not in any office. Reminder, that check is from 2018. Joe Biden wasn't a United States senator at that time. Joe Biden wasn't the vice president at that time. Joe Biden certainly wasn't the president at that time. Joe Biden wasn't even a candidate for office in 2018. The Republicans will have to be able to prove that receiving that money either one, violated some sort of United States law, it doesn't, or two, that money influenced Joe Biden into taking some sort of action while holding elected office favorable towards the government of the country where it originated or towards a foreign company or entity. But neither Jesse Waters nor the House Oversight Committee can prove that because it simply didn't happen. And I'm not Joe Biden's biggest fan by any stretch of the imagination. There are many things Joe Biden deserves to be criticized for, but the Republicans don't care about those things. Instead, they're focused solely on trying to brand Joe Biden as corrupt. And the only reason they're doing this is because the Democrats were so successful in painting Donald Trump as a corrupt president, as a corrupt businessman, as a corrupt candidate. Because he was. Because his corruption knew no bounds. It was easy to paint him that way because he did the things he's been accused of. And we'll see that play out in court later this year. And Republicans are going to continue to tell us about the next smoking gun in this nothing burger corruption investigation into Joe Biden, while their candidate has actually been found liable for committing fraud. While their candidate, in my opinion, is going to end up in prison for a myriad of things that he's been accused of and has been charged with. So in a year from now, when you go to the polls, just think about who you want to vote for. The party that actually has a president with massive amounts of corruption allegations against him, indictments against him, charges against him, or the candidate that the other party had to fabricate corruption allegations against. It's a no-brainer, which incidentally is also how I describe Marjorie Taylor Greene.